Welcome back everyone to the Hello World Guide. This is another episode of the C++ for Beginners series, and in this video what we are going to do is we are going to learn how to use while loops. So if you remember, in the last video we learned about repetition and we learned how to use this for loop. So in this video we are going to learn while loops. So while loops are in many ways quite similar to for loops, but the structure is a bit different and it's more similar to the if that we have gotten. So let us actually create an interesting program to actually demonstrate what we have learned so far in control flow. So what I am going to do is I'm going to create a integer here called just call it number, I guess, and this number is going to be any value which we are going to, let's say, just set it to anything you want to, let's say 345. What this value can do is we are basically have a random value at the place of this number, but we will learn how to do randomization in a second. For now, let's go down here and let's go ahead and say so the idea is that what we want to do is we want to take this number, and this is going to be just a random number, and we are going to ask the user to guess that number. The user will tell what the number is, and if that number is too much, then it will say too high, and if it is low, then it will say too low. Then we will adjust that until the user can kind of zero in into the number. So that's the basic idea. So for that we are going to create a while loop. So a while loop, basically what it does is that it basically, so you can see if I press tab, it actually fills it for me, and it's more like if. So you just put a while, and then you put in this parentheses, you need to put a condition, which currently you can see just says true, which means that this while loop will continue on forever, which is obviously not something that we want. Let us set it to, if I say false, then it will not run at all. So these are two keywords in C++. But with them, the idea that I want you to understand is that this is basically a condition, and a condition is not only like you can actually store a condition in a variable. That variable is going to be of type boolean, which is bool for short, and you can call it anything, and I'm going to call it quit, which means that whether we should quit the game or not. And you can set it to false, so you can set a bool to either to false or to true. Or you some condition which will evaluate to false or true. You cannot set it to anything other than true or false, or some condition that will evaluate to either of these. So after having while loop here, we are going to say while quit. However, if we do that, that will mean that when we quit, we don't want to actually turn this on until we don't quit. So when we quit, we want to end the while loop. In order to reverse, you put an exclamation sign before the quit, and it's pronounced while not quit. So this is not, the exclamation sign is not, and if you put a not equal, then that means not equal. You can see it does that. So this is pronounced not quit. So while we are not quitting, what we will do is so while we are not quitting, we will do this. What we will do, we will learn that in a second. So we are going to start off by saying cout, and remember, this will continue until we decide to set the quit variable to true. Until we set it to true, this will continue. This loop will never end. So we are going to cout, and we are going to say hello. Actually, let's don't do that. Let's just go get straight to the point. Let us say can you guess the number? Okay, so first let's actually let me go outside of the while loop. So I'm going to say cout and say something like I have a number, let's say from number from 0 to let's say from 0 to 999, and then we are going to ask the user whether he can guess it. Can you guess it? So let's do that. Actually, let's not do that and instead put 1000 here. Yeah, that's better. So we are going to just ask the user whether he can guess it, and then what we are going to do in the while loop, we are going to say cout, we are going to say enter your guess. And I forgot to put quotes, and that's gonna cause a problem until actually so put quotes here, and that's awesome. And now we have got entered your guess, and then we are going to put /n after that. Actually not, just put a colon and a space, and then we are going to have a variable inside of this while loop. Now any variable inside of the while loop is going to be private to the while loop. Essentially you cannot use it outside of the while loop. This is called scoping. So any variable that you create inside this curly brackets, any curly brackets, will be only available inside those curly brackets. It will not be able outside. So I'm going to create an integer here called guess, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the guess. So I'm going to see in guess. That's awesome. And now we are going to put an if statement here. So we are going to put an if statement saying if our guess is greater than the number. So if our guess is greater than the number, then what we are going to do is we are going to see out, and we are going to say too high. Let's say too high, like that, and slash n, and actually too. Alright, so after that, if the guess is not that case, so if we are going to obviously put an else statement here, but we want to also not just do it, but let me first, okay, let's first go ahead and copy this. Let's take one thing at a time and paste this here. So we are going to say too low if it's other. However, this might be actually equal to the number. In that case, we want to obviously end the game and not just go saying too low. So how is that going to work? We need to add another condition here. For that, we can actually use else if. So you can say if, and you can, after else, you can basically add another if, like that. And you can see, say something like guess is less than number. So you can basically nest these as much as you want. You can put an else if, another else if, another else if, and that can keep going, which is pretty awesome. So I'm going to now put just an else here, and enter, and then this, and this will only happen if the number is neither greater nor less, which means it's obviously equal to the guess. So we are going to, in that case, we are going to see out, and we are going to say you won. Let's say you won in all caps, and that's awesome. So I'm going to put a new line after that, and let's just go ahead and say quit. We are going to take our quit variable here, and we are going to set it to true. So yeah, that's pretty awesome, and this was basically the way our game would work, and it will actually work correctly. Now currently our number is 345, and let's start the game and see how that goes. So you can see it says I have a number from 0 to 1000, can you guess it? And it asks us to enter our first guess. Now let us consider that we don't know what the number is. We enter 500, you can see it says too high. Then we enter 250, that kind of helps us zero in. It says too low, and then we are going to say 375, and it says too high. Then we are going to try 350, and it says too high, and we try 345, and we eventually reach it, and we win, and the game ends. That's all pretty awesome. Now one thing is left here, which is that we obviously want this number to be different every time we play the game and not just be the same. So how are we going to go about that? Alright, so in order to actually make this random, there is an old way of doing it, which is the C way, but we are going to do it in the modern C++ way. So in order to do that, you just need to go ahead and include another header file to your already list of included header files, and this is going to be random. The file is called just random, and once you include that, you can go ahead here and you can use the you can basically create a variable. So the way you do it is by as we said before, we use the string variable. It's quite simple with the same condition with the random variable. You create a variable which is of type random device. This is not a type in C++. It's a standard library type. We will discuss how to create these on your own later, but for now just remember it's a type, and we are going to just call it R&D, and this is going to be our random device, which is pretty awesome. Now if I go here and I go ahead and say R&D, and if I just put like so basically we have got this object here, and this is a variable which has got a bunch of properties. In order to access these properties, you need to put the variable, then you need to put a dot after that, and once you do that, you can see it has got a bunch of functions inside it. But what you can do is you can just put a this thing after that, and what it does is that it basically makes it produce a random number. However, that number might not necessarily be in between between 1000, which is obviously a problem. We want this number to be between 1000, between 0 and 1000. So the way you do that is you basically put the modulus operator after this, and then you put 1000. What this does is that since the remainder of any number cannot be greater than 1000, it will always be equal to 1000. and maybe you can put 1001 here, but let's just keep it at 1000. Alright, so now it will is going to work perfectly, and we will have a separate number every time. So if I go ahead and say 548, you can see it says too high, and I go ahead and say 250, it says too high again, and I do 125, it says too low, and then I took 200, it says too low, and then I take 230 and it still says too low. So I take 240 and it is too high, which means it between 230 and 240. So I say 235 is still too high, and then I say 233, and oh, we made a mistake here. So it's a little bug in our program, and let's try again now. So if I say 200, it says too low, and I say 500, it says too low, and I say 700, it still says too low. So I say 900 and it still says too low, and I say 955, it says too high, and I say 950, it says too high. So I say 920, it's too low, which means it's between those, and 930 is also too low, and 940 is too low as well, which means it might be 945, which is still too low, which means it's between 945 and 950. So 947 is still too low, which means it's 948, which is too low, which means it can only be 949, and we win. So yeah, this was pretty awesome, and this is basically a game we created, and we learned a lot of stuff doing that. So make sure to like and subscribe and share this video with other people, and I will see you in the next video, and bye.